Hey y'all, welcome back to Proficiency in Play. My name's Pip, your Dungeon Master. Today we're going to be talking about the geography and makeup and inspiration of the world of Eos. I call it the world of Eos. It's actually a relatively small island. One could traverse from Revel to the opposite shore of the island of Eos in the span of 2 to 2.5 weeks. Given that everything goes well. Now, this is a map that I created, and it is the very first map I created, so it's not perfect, but I'm relatively happy with it. I'm just going to talk you through the inspiration for the world and point out some things on the map, and we can really just have a chat about it. North in this map is actually to the direction of Avali's Perch. If you see Avali's Perch there, the tallest of the white-capped mountains, that is north. I didn't actually make this map be north at the top, which maybe I should have in retrospect, but Avali's Perch is the north, making Mount Neris the southern end, and Revel on the western bay, the western coast of Eos. Before we really dig into the map, I'll explain a little bit about the inspiration for the world of Eos. I myself really love Greek Dark Age myth, and the inspiration for the world of Eos really came from that. I want to tell a story about the human condition, about the value of life and the value of people, and yet the difficulties of life, and to some degree, the fickleness of the gods. And I thought that the Greek stories that you hear in Greek myth really kind of do that same thing. So I wanted to use something like that. So you'll notice when I describe the city of Revel in previous videos, it's Greco-Roman inspired. This whole world is out of a Greco-Roman myth idea. Think the Iliad and the Odyssey, the Trojan War, Achilles, Hercules, these kind of stories. All right. The other thing that I really wanted to dig into in my story was the elementalism of the world, and based off of these four kind of primal elements of air, earth, fire, and water that you would see in like Eastern Asian um, ideals. So I wanted to include that. So let's dig into a little bit about the geography. I have separated the world generally into four quadrants. This quadrant up here towards the north, which includes the white-capped mountains as well as the foothills and part of the grasslands, represents air. This is the um, quadrant that represents the element of air. As you can see, if we move through the mountain range to this great big forest over here where it says Tree of Turan, this represents earth. Moving south to this dark land volcanic area, this represents fire. And my representation of the element of water is strewn through this bottom area of the map. Now, off the coast is the real area of water that you'll see, but there's also many lakes and rivers that run on this half of the world of Eos to really represent the four elements. As we play, we'll understand that these four elements are very, very important, as I've also based the pantheon of the gods off of this elemental makeup of the world of Eos. Obviously, you see Revel down here on the bay, which is where our game starts and takes place. And Revel stands very opposed to the world around it, not in conflict, but in the idea that Revel is growing up, up, up. And even though it looks like a medieval castle town here on the map, because the assets I had, Revel is on the verge of industrial revolution. We are late 1800s, early 1900s Revel, this big metropolis set onto a canvas that is Greek Dark Ages. So it's very, very different than the world around it. And the players at the beginning of the game don't really know how the world around Revel works. So we're going to explore that through our game. Now, the Grimmel or Grimmelkin live in Revel almost exclusively, and the grasslands and farmlands that surround Revel. Also, the Tauren live on the coast and on some of these islands in the archipelago in the bottom of the screen there, and on the water. Though there are races that live in the mountains, in the forests, and in the darklands, as well as beneath the sea. I really wanted to get a Dungeons and Dragons game where underwater was utilized well and in an interesting way. So I made one of my main elemental quadrants actually be underneath the surface of the water, not in islands or something like that, but actually under the water. And the players will have to go there throughout their adventures. Now you can see on the map that these four elements seem to stand pretty starkly contrasted with one another. Specifically, the Darklands in the south, the volcanic region, there is a massive trench. There are cliffs that climb from Revel. It's a very, very steep cliff and a massive trench that separates it from the forested area. And nobody travels very much, except if you've seen my other video that came out this week on the Savra. The Savra do travel a lot. And if you see these white lines, these are actually trade routes that the Savra take. Now you can see these kind of nomadic structures here in the desert. The entire center of the world of Eos is dominated by a desert, and the Savra live here, and they're well adapted to the desert. But the desert makes crossing from one quadrant to another very, very difficult for many of the other races. And so the Savra make their living being traders throughout the world of Eos and connecting the world around them. You can see down here in the south, also we have an archipelago of islands that some of the Tauren live on, but are primarily uninhabited, as well as a group of caves off the bay to the northwest of Revel. So there's a lot of interesting things to look at. This is just a big top-down view, and I don't want to dig in too much to the types of people that live in the world of Eos and all that, because I want you guys to experience that as the players do and throughout the storyline. But I just wanted to give you a picture of the island of Revel, or the island of Eos, I'm sorry, and the world of Eos. Um, so you guys can start to kind of picture how things line up when we begin to go through our story. Now, if you've seen episode 4, the players have exited through this northern gate here. I'm calling this the northern gate, even though it's not completely oriented towards the north. And they came up into this area between the rivers where the Savra are. There's farmland here, and they spend an entire day traveling through this grassland and crossing the bridge here that you can see on the river, and they camped right here with some Savra. So that's where our party is. It was a quick day's travel to get to here, but these grasslands are also the easiest portion of the world to traverse because they are civilized by the people of Revel mostly and not very dangerous. So this has just been a look at the map that I created for the world of Eos and some of the inspirations behind why I created the world to look like this and the kind of story I want to tell in it. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming videos about the world of Eos and the adventures that take place within. As always, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.